Hello queens, angels, and goddesses. Shout out to Mellow Mushroom and Okpa. Go subscribe to them. The links to their channels in the description. If you don't like my channel, then why are you on it? Shirabu Kenjiro stretches out his hand across the bed, the linen crumpled and warm. Cracking an eye open, he glares at the open window as hard as the late morning sun is glaring into their bedroom. Huffing and puffing, he turns around and closes his eyes again, a feeble attempt to avoid the brightness pouring into the room so that he might get a few more hours of sleep. He knows he can always get up and shut the curtains himself, but after 5 days of struggling to finish his final year of medical school and going through the demanding shifts at the hospital he's interning at, he really does not want to break the magic of simply being in bed, hair disheveled and his body almost relaxed. I could be a little more comfortable if he could just. Suddenly, the brightness behind Shirabu's closed eyelids disappear, cocooning him in a soothing soft of darkness. Before he could turn around or do anything really, he feels strong, lean arms sliding in under the sheets and wrapping around his torso. I could hear you frowning all the way from the living room, love. Semi whispers, chuckling, as he pulls his fiancée flush against his chest. Stop trying to be cute, you're ruined by sleep. Shirabu mumbles, even as he snuggles into the embrace. They stay like that for a while, entangled and content, as Semi softly hums the very first song he ever wrote, a confession about a love that seemed so unattainable back then. And here he is now, the love of his life nestled in his arms, grumpy but heartwarmingly adorable with his hair in disarray and nose all scrunched up. I can leave if you want to catch a few more hours of sleep. Semi offers, his thumb rubbing circles over the back of Shirabu's hands. I know you've had a long week. There's a beat of silence and Semi almost slithers out of bed when Shirabu's fingers clasp around his wrist, stopping him. Settling back into the previous position, Semi waits for Shirabu to ask him to sing. It's something that lulls him to sleep without fail every single time, and Semi would continue to pursue his music career for this sole reason, if not for anything else. The warmth he feels to the very tips of his toes when his to-be husband listens to him sing with the reverence of a devotee listening to God is incomparable to anything he's ever felt or ever will. It's true I had a long week and I didn't get much sleep, Shirabu says, turning around to lock his eyes with his fiancé's, but I didn't get to see much of you either, and I missed you. After a beat, Semi's face breaks into the kind of smile that almost defeats the sun blazing outside. It's contagious, has been since they were just high school kids, so Shirabu can't help but smile back too. They lean in, the tips of their noses touching. Semi's hands slip under Shirabu's forlorn t-shirt and turns his small form around so their chests are pressed together. The auburn-haired boy's fingers twine through the ash-blonde strands as they kiss. It's chaste, slow, comforting. So you do miss M. Semi begins, breaking the kiss. Another word and I'll castrate you. Shirabu deadpans and Semi kisses him again, chest rumbling with laughter. It's late afternoon as Shirabu saunters out of their bedroom, his nose following the mouthwatering smell of something being cooked wafting from the kitchen. The sight that meets his eyes almost makes him fall to his knees and send a prayer to whichever god is listening. Semi is still in his pajama bottoms and a t-shirt that Shirabu is sure he's seen since the first year of his high school, an apron hanging around his neck. There's soft music playing in the background as his fiancée pan-fries whatever they are having for lunch. There's a bottle of wine on one of the counters, and while usually Semi's day drinking during the weekend annoys Shirabu endlessly, he can't bring himself to feel any irritation at all today, only gratitude. Bone-warming gratitude for having a partner like Semi-Eater. Truth be told, Shirabu has been in love with Semi much longer than he ever cares to admit out loud. It was probably the first year of his high school, the day they met at the volleyball club. Even though Shirabu's pride would never allow him to admit that Semi might have been a better setter than at first, he was awed by how good of a pinch server he was though. He always wrote it off as jealousy and not or something he almost welcomed, because the green-eyed monster always worked as a good motivator, a way for him to push himself to be better. He loved watching Semi play, how easy he made getting along with everyone look, the natural grace, the empathetic eyes, the unbound laughter, but he always brushed it off as him taking notes from a senior, learning. All of his excuses were crushed on a particularly warm summer night though, when Semi had approached him and told him how good of a setter Shirabu was. It kick-started something, and now here they are, 4 months away from their wedding. Earth 2, Kenjiro. Semi teases from the kitchen, looking at him with laughing eyes. Without replying, Shirabu walks out of the memory lane and into the kitchen, taking a seat across from his fiancée. He's busy plating up the food: salmon fillet, grilled calamari and baked peas with butter. He can't help but smile a little. Semi isn't very much into cooking, but he goes above and beyond to make food that Shirabu enjoys when they both get days off. It's something that's never really mentioned, but it's tucked away somewhere in the crevices of Shirabu's heart. Babe? Yeah. Semi replies, placing a plate in front of either of them before finally sitting down. Do you remember the day you asked me out? Shirabu asks, digging in. Jesus fuck, how can I forget? Semi laughs, throwing his head back. Man, you've always been something else. Shirabu rolls his eyes but laughs too, remembering the pounding rain on the pavement and Semi almost choking out his confession during the third year's graduation night. There had been this unresolved tension between the two of them as the end of the school year had neared. Their conversations had been strained and Semi's laugh always seemed so off. That had bothered Shirabu almost as much as the fact that the third years were graduating and he'd probably never see Semi again, let alone ever find the courage to tell how he'd felt all this time. Thank God for the rowdy duo of second years who had tried to flirt with Shirabu in front of Semi. Thank God Tendao had spiked the punch. Thank God for Semi Eater's liquid courage dragging Shirabu by the hand out of the gym and into the pouring rain. Thank God he'd said every word that Shirabu had felt for years but had never managed to get out. Thank you, Shirabu finally mumbles, locking eyes with his fiancée. Thank you for being in love with me and deciding to spend the rest of your life with me. Ken, there's never been anyone else for me. Semi says, tilting his head a little and smiling softly. Not since the day you walked into the volleyball club tryouts in your first year looking like you were auditioning for the Olympics. I hadn't known till then that a frown could be beautiful. Oh Jesus, stop it. Shirabu rolls his eyes, laughing but then sobers up a little, quietly adding, I love you, I love you more. Semi says, his voice equally quiet. The sun's almost gone, the faintest traces of red and orange tainting the horizon as dusk settles over the city. Semi's head is on Shirabu's stomach, the latter's fingers playing with Semi's hair. A laptop is perched on a pillow in front of them, half-finished bottle of wine on the nightstand. What do you want to watch, love? Semi asks as he scrolls through Netflix. Anything is fine with me, you know that. Grey's Anatomy? Semi asks, waiting for the reaction that he knows is to come. Fuck off. You know I hate that show. Shirabu grimaces like there is something bitter on his tongue. The medical stuff is so off the mark that it's not even comical to me. I know, Ken. I just like seeing you getting all wound up. Semi laughs and Shirabu flicks his head. I will someday kill you in your sleep. Shirabu says, his voice suddenly sickly sweet, one little air bubble in your bloodstream and goodbye. You threaten to kill me so often that I almost find it romantic. Semi muses, drawing the other boy's hand in his and kissing each fingertip. Maybe you could compile them all for your wedding vows. That's probably one of the few bright things you've ever said to me. Shirabu deadpans and as they burst into laughter, he leans down to kiss his fiancée's forehead. Warning: this fanfiction does not belong to me, neither does the fan art. Credits to the original artist and author to the fan art and the fanfiction. Haikyuu does not belong to me either. Well, by children smiling face with hearts.